Season 1 of Belizean Workers Rights. If you're on YouTube or you're joining us on the Zoom, thank you for being with us for the next hour. I am the producer and the host of this independent initiative. I'm YaYa Marin Coleman, known as Sista YaYa, and our brother Dean Flowers also co-host with me. Good night, brother Dean.
Good night, Sister YaYa, and good night to our reliable host, Sister Trisha.
Yes.
Good night to our viewers, and thank you very much for joining us. I'm looking forward to another informational and educational conversation, YaYa.
Yes, yes, yes. Let me say again that this is an independent initiative. I'm producing it, and I asked our brother Dean to join me. There's some few rules, so I'll just share. I got these guidelines from Facebook Global Decolonization Initiative, and I thought that it was applicable. Thank you all for showing up. Keep it educational and supportive. We have people here in different stages of growth, and in a spirit of collective liberation, it's important to remember attacking is a system of oppression in and of itself. So please be mindful when that comes up. The group is open for debate and healthy banter. Please keep it respectful and educational. Please enjoy this time and space with us. Do your best to come from a place of education rather than convincing. And let's commence to changing the world. So, in the first half hour, Brother Dean and I will continue the conversation that we started 2 weeks ago, talking about unionism in Belize. And at 7:30, we open up the space for our participants to ask questions, share their comments, their thoughts with us. So, the last time we were here, Brother Dean, you had asked me if, from the research that I've been doing, or let me say, we have a few of these books for sale. Ray Nothing to Lose by Ray Lightburn is for sale. They're $15 each. You may contact me at 671-8050. This book is the second text that we're using. Nicholas Anthony Pollard Jr., Understanding the Role of the Christian Trade Unions in the Making of Modern Belize, a Historical Perspective. You may buy it at Print Belize in Belmopan. And this is one of my main sources, this book, Colonialism and Resistance in Belize, Essays in Historical Sociology by O. Nigel Boland. Wrote this on Albert Street, have it for 30 something dollars. So those are some of the texts that I'm using as I'm doing research on unionism in Belize. I was saying to Brother Dean earlier that we could talk about the history of unionism in Belize for a period of time. It's important that we lay the frame for these conversations. And some of those main points of conversation, Brother Dean, would be, what did the people look like? We're talking about, we're using the benchmark of 1838 for the liberation of enslaved African people, and understanding that even when our ancestors were enslaved, that the enslavers were in control of land and labor. And even after the liberation of African people, if we were genuinely liberated, because that is debatable, there was still an intentional control of land and labor. And so naturally, as human beings, there's going to be resistance. So there are different forms of resistance. So for example, people ran away. So bringing that same vibration, 1838, 100 years later, 1938, people were still resisting in different forms. So even though I believe the unions didn't actually get legal recognition, 1941 in law, but not really. 1943 is when people could legally register and act as a union, but there were still other groups of people gathering as associations or groups, resisting, boycotting, striking, petitioning, and very politically conscious. And so one of the conversations why, for example, people had a level of political consciousness was because of the United Negro Improvement Association, um, which was formed by our brother Marcus Garvey. And so people were having conversations. They were very clear that there were injustices done. So I wanted people to always remember those things, like who were the people, and it wasn't only just European people. There were also people who identify as Creole people and were very supportive of the Crown and British value system. So yes, so and in this conversation we have to talk about, because brother Dean, in my haste I forgot two of my notebooks home. But one of the things that ached me when doing research about the union is the silence of women. It's, the women were very active, you know, they were very present. But in reading the text, it's as if women never existed. You don't hear their names mentioned, the ones who were the movers and shakers. You will hear, you know, three men were arrested and one woman was with them, but that woman was not named. Or you hear that the women and the children were very boisterous in a boycott or a demonstration. And so that is very glaring, the like almost total erasure of women and the awesome organizing that they did as people pushing back for social justice. So definitely we have to look at the class structure, you know, very impoverished people, the wealthy people being in control, women being practically erased when we talk about the history of unionism in Belize. The economy is directly connected to the quality of life of people, the impact of natural disasters. And so those are some of the things I would encourage us to talk about. Any thoughts about what I've said so far, Brother Dean?
Yeah, well, certainly, I think what stuck out at me was towards the end of your comment, uh, where you mentioned about women and not being mentioned and recognized. That's so true indeed. Uh, even in our history, um, we don't hear much about women having played a pivotal role in the union movement. Of course, all of that is changing, and I am reflecting on the current environment of unionism in Belize, and uh, I will say that as we progress as a nation, you can rest assured that women are in fact shaping the history of unionism in Belize today.
Well, we've always been instrumental, you know. It's not that we haven't. It's just that the people who do the writing, and it shows the bias and the realness of patriarchy, which is the domination of masculine power over other genders. And I identify as a woman, and I am not a person who will say I support women leadership just because somebody identifies as a woman or a man or any other gender. Yes, there's a need for the representation, but if these people in leadership position have genuinely not know themselves, so
Mhm.
if you don't know yourself, even if you're offered a position, and because patriarchy is real, that oftentimes, and you know, there's a we had a guest this past Sunday on Sunday Review, Brother Kavan Gill from the president of the Jamaica Industrial Trade Union, and he talked about the connection when you have people in leadership in unions who then become a part of the parliament, the governance of a country. And so you would often see women in leadership position, but they're more like rubber stamp people. They're not people who may, you know, my observation, my experience, they tend to go along. As Sister Sandra Cowie would say, they're manageable. Because if you're not manageable, you wouldn't be in the position. And I have a audio that I will have to say when we can air it on Creme Radio with Sister Elfrida Reyes, who was a starch unionist and was very clear about the patriarchy within unionism. And from her experience, was her experience, that the People's United Party hijacked the General Workers Union.
Yeah, yeah,
And so the purpose of the union was lost. And in Nick Pollard's book, he said the same thing as well. However, if you were listening to the People's United Party narrative, that's not the vibration you would get. And that's why it's so important that we don't have a single narrative about unionism in Belize. But I wanted to just quickly mention some of the strikes, protests, because you had asked that in the last 2 weeks ago when we first started, Dean, and you asked if there were any gains. So one of the first ones that I have in 1869, about 31 years after emancipation, which was in 1838, um, there was a strike action by 31 sugar workers. So that was one. They tried to improve their situation by withdrawing their labor at a critical moment of the production process. but that it backfired on them. It didn't work. So it didn't always work. At this time, workers on the estate received only about $7 per month, half in cash, half in goods. Their effort to improve their work situation proved costly. So there was a serious consequence for them saying that they weren't going to work. And it's not all the time that when you try something. So this is on, and I would usually write the page number down so that people know what it is that I'm talking about. So I'm going to page 166 so you can understand why it turned out to be costly for them. It says, where is it? Is it 166? Yes. All right. So it says, the defendants were put by the manager of Regalia Estate to cut canes by day work, which they did not like, wishing to work by task, but which the manager would not consent to, as they hurried through their work and did not cut the canes properly. The defendants then left off working at 10 o'clock in the morning and came down to Alpines to ask me to compel the manager to give them task work. What a task work? Anyone know what a task work? You know, Dean?
Task work. Actually it's still referenced today. And it is exactly what the name implies. You're given a task and uh,
Well, there's a difference between day work and task work, but I don't know what the difference. So um, they didn't want day work. They wanted task work. It says, I think their principal reason for striking was to try and frighten the manager into what they wanted. This happened during crop, and the mill had to be stopped for the day. They were by they were by my advice arrested and tried, and I ordered each of them to pay their employers the sum of $2.50 and the cost of $1.50, which they consented to do. And the manager agreed to stop it out of their wages. So they paid a cost for what they did. It went on to say the issue here appears to have been primarily one of control over the work situation, the workers preferring the more autonomous task work and the manager insisting on his right to control their labor. After this experience in court, these workers would be unlikely to appeal to the magistrates again. Since workers on that estate received only about $7 per month, half in cash and half in goods, their effort to improve their work situation proved costly. So it really cost them, it hit them in the pocket, and they didn't get what they wanted. Now that was in 1869. And then I also kept track when I could to find out how much people were paid. Because if we start to look at how much people are paid now based on the job they did, and we start looking at what they were paid in the early 1800s, and then we start to look, for example, at ILO cost of living, then we begin to understand as employers, I'm sorry, as employees, as workers, what the value of our work ought to be and what they're actually paying us and how long they've been paying us at enslavement wages. You ought to be able to have a living wage. Is there a definition for living wage for the union, Brother Dean?
unfortunately, not that I'm aware of. I think the only conversation surrounding wages has to do with minimum wage. Uh,
Right.
that's about it.
And so when people talk about a living wage, it means that you're able to afford adequate housing. If it's mortgage or if you rent, you can afford adequate health care. That I mean, not bare minimum. You can afford adequate health care. You can afford adequate schooling, and food, nutritious food, and then still have disposable cash. You don't live hand to mouth. You're living with dignity. Oh, and I know one of the things that I missed out earlier that's very important for the conversation. Good night, Jasmine, Zatina. Thanks for joining us. Is the economic system that we don't have to live like this, but we're living like this primarily because of the capitalist economic system and globalization. Do you all have conversations about the economic system that we live with, Dean, as union members?
As a union, not even at the we don't have those kind of conversations at the at the union level, which is the PSU, and sadly, we don't have those conversations either at the NTUCB level. And those are those are clearly those are or that's an area or one area that clearly we should be having these kind of conversation, yeah, yeah. But I think that our structure, the way how we're structured as unions, and the challenges that we face today to organize ourselves does not, honestly, does not even give, does not give right path of, of focusing on those areas that in this day and age we should in fact be speaking about and so that we can influence politics.
Well, hopefully that's one of the voids that this space will would fill, that we have such conversations. So let me use I use this book, Building Power, Sharpening Minds. It's one of my organizing sacred texts. And it says, the economic system we live under benefits certain groups of people at the expense of other groups of people. The system is set up to make poor people poorer and rich people richer. So it says, it is the people who suffer the most under this system that need to take the lead in changing it. We're all responsible change makers. So before we can collectively find ways to change our circumstances, we need to be knowledgeable about what our truths are. And so, in looking back at our trade union history, uh, that's one of the things that we intend to do tonight. Good night, Virginia Cabanas. Thank you for joining us. I'm currently going through some of the, and I know I can't mention everything, but I'm talking about some of the strikes that I found from the research that I did. So there was another one in, let's see, there were also demonstrations and riots as in 1894 when mahogany workers returned to town from the camps oh, this is when they had the devaluation in 1894. Returned to town from the camps to find that a currency devaluation had severely reduced their wages, as a deputation led by John Alexander Tom went to the governor. When the governor refused to do anything, the workers rioted and looted stores. After British troops landed to quell the disturbances, the employers conceded to an increase in wages. So sometimes it doesn't tell you how much the wage increase may have been, but that there was a response to the people organizing and pushing back. So that was in, the first one was in 1869, the second one was in 1894. And then you have the 1919 July 22nd and 23rd, where you have soldiers coming back from the war. Now they're trained, now they're disciplined. They've experienced racism at a different level than before they went to war. And so when they came back, and again, the same issues that you have now, unemployment, cannot get food, inadequate housing, your health being impacted, malnutrition, just a terrible situation. The people organized and they went in two troops, down Regent Street, down Albert Street. They went over the swing bridge. So they would stand in front of a store, the major stores, blow a whistle, smash the windows, and loot. And then they went cross swing bridge, went down Queen Street, and went down North Front Street and looted as well. And they were very clear that they were holding the colonial government accountable for the suffering that they were going through. Here in 2021, we can still say the same thing. So the details of that is just horrific to listen to, but they're very clear. There's documentation of exactly what happened. So that was in 1919. And then the next one I came to was in 1934. So in the 30s and 40s, a lot happened. A lot happened. And I was very excited to read some of these things. So in 1934, you have the, let me ask Brother Dean, because we've said this a number of times. What do you know about 1934, Brother Dean?
Well, yeah, yeah. Well, of course, I wouldn't know anything because
You knew the last time. You did. It was the unemployment brigade. It was in early 1934.
yeah, Okay, that was February 14th.
There you go.
Yeah,
See?
yeah. The Unemployed Brigade marched through Belize town on February
Yes.
9th and 4th to
Yes.
present demands to the governor and started a broad movement. Yeah, I was look. I found this text, Yaya, under this. It's a piece called "The Genesis of Modern Politics, 1931 to 1954." And while it does not enter into the details of that you just mentioned, it captures the essence and the dates. And actually, this piece goes back to 1930. It speaks about riots, strikes, and rebellions had occurred before, during and after the period of slavery, but the events of the 1930s were modern labor disturbances in the sense that they gave rise to organizations which articulate industrial and political goals. In 1894, which you spoke of, the mahogany workers rioted against a cut in their real wages caused by devaluation. In 1919, demobilized Creole servicemen protested Belize racism, but Belize British troops soon stopped these spontaneous protests, which were indicative of discontent but had little lasting effect. And that is when, and I guess that relates to when you said they went down Albert Street and did that looting. And
Right.
then,
That was in 1919.
yes,
One of the
1919.
things that I did mention is that in the early 30s, because there was the depression in the United States in 1929, 1930, and then we had the hurricane in Belize City. Was it 10 September 1930 or 1931? So that really made the I have to give another story. I have to find it because you familiar with the wording Dag Sidong?
Dog, sit down.
Uh-huh.
Wow. I've heard it used before, but I know it's not the first time I'm hearing that. Dog, sit down. Hmm.
Okay, these are houses. I'm looking for I'm looking for where I found it in here where it talked about I have to find it because this is so important. Because after the hurricane, people were in a terrible situation and they needed money. And so the colony had asked Britain for a loan, and Britain would only lend them the money if they agreed for the governor to take back some power that it had before. I cannot believe that I cannot find this thing now that I'm looking for it. Um, Give me one sec. Let me find where is it? Where it talked about the hurricane. Because okay, so let me go on so I can stay on track. So that was so the fourth one I told you about was the unemployment brigade, and then before the end of 1934. Okay, so this is what I wanted to read for you. So I'd never heard Antonio Sabaranes being described as a Moses. So he said, in 1933, the economy was shattered and some 2,000 people were unemployed. On 14 February 1934, some of the unemployed people formed themselves into the Unemployed Brigade and marched around town carrying placards and chanting slogans. They petitioned the governor for relief. On 16 March 1934, Antonio Sabaranes Gomez, a barber by trade, denounced the Unemployed Brigade's leaders and turned the people in a more militant direction. Soon, between 600 and 800 people were meeting twice a week to cheer Sabaranes' attacks on the governor and his officials, the rich merchants, and the Belize Estate and Produce Company. The biweekly meetings lasted 4 or 5 hours, and according to the superintendent of police, the more violent the language used from the rostrum, the more the crowd enjoyed it. Sabaranes called the Moses of British Honduras created and led the Laborers and Unemployment Association. While the laborers made specific demands for relief and a minimum wage, These demands were couched in broad moral and political terms that began to define and develop a new nationalistic and democratic political culture in Belize. Before the end of 1934, Soberanis had organized a strike in Stan Creek and was arrested in connection with a major riot in Belize City. The colonial authorities' response to these labor disturbances, which were soon to occur throughout the West Indies, was to victimize the leaders, but they also moved slowly towards concessions and improvements in the laborers' working and living conditions. And so it was, and there would be cycles of this happening over and over again.
Mm.
I found a footnote that I wanted to share. It's already 7:25. This is what the footnote said. It's in the notes. It said, there are now, more or less directly under the imperial government in the different colonies, about 770,000 persons who have been released from slavery by the Emancipation Act and are now in a state of rapid transition to enter freedom. Now, I read this phone, I'm not going to, you know what I said sometimes, people bowling now. They put down what they want to do to you before they do it, like they write it down. So I want to start again for giving the context. It says in 1835, the Reverend John Sterling argued that the churches and their schools could play an important role in the West Indies in keeping the ex slaves as dependent and orderly laborers. That's the context for this paragraph where I read to them. They are now more or less directly under the imperial government in the different colonies, about 770,000 persons who have been released from slavery by the Emancipation Act and are now in a state of rapid transition to enter freedom. The peace and prosperity of the empire at large may be not remotely influenced by their moral condition. For although the Negroes are now under a system of limited control, which secures to a certain extent their orderly and industrious conduct, in the short space of 5 years, from the 1st of next August, their performance of the functions of a laboring class in a civilized community will depend entirely on the power over their minds of the same prudential and moral motives which govern more or less the mass of the people here. If they are not so disposed as to fulfill these functions, property will perish in the colonies for lack of human impulsion. There has been since the 1st of August a great increase of the desire for knowledge. Its certain result, where the minds of the people are at all in movement, will be a consciousness of their own independent value. It's a lot, and I probably lost you all a long time ago. But the point is that they were very clear that when our enslaved ancestors were physically liberated, that given time, they will become conscious. We'll no longer be able to control them. And in order for the empire to thrive like we set it up, we need to control these people. And so there was a direct correlation between allowing people access to land and having them dependent on working. And so when we look back in 2021 and we're saying you need to go to the land, you need to work the land. And it's not that Belizeans aren't trying to get land. It's been made based on the system extremely difficult to own land. So I'm going to give Brother Dean the mic. It's 7:28. Welcome, Philippa, Miguel, Ella, and Wayne Lambe. Thanks for joining us. We'll get out of everything we are. So, Dean, make us see if I just the ramble on.
All right. Well, I think I just want to kind of add to what you stated, and for those who might have just joined us, pretty much the discussion, of course, is focusing on the history of unionism in Belize and some of the gains that unionism or workers organizing, some of the gains that they've made, and we looked at what has been happening since the 1930s. And I just want to comment here, YaYa, that in that 1934 riot in Belize, I am reading here that it says poor people in desperation turned to the governor, and this was, of course, during the riot, who responded by creating a little relief work, stone breaking for 10 cents a day. The governor also offered a daily ration of 2 kilograms of cooked rice at the prison gates. So it shows that once you are able to organize, you start making progress. So as we might term these things as pittance, but of course in 1934, 10 cents a day, perhaps, I don't know, maybe, I don't know what's the value of that today. Another addition that I think is important, where you spoke about uh, the riots with Soberanis or the unemployed brigades. Uh, I'm looking at the numbers here, and it says that when they went and rioted against the Belize State and Produce Company, it was done at bi-weekly meetings, and it was attended by 600 to 800 people. So this was a very big movement when you look at that number. And the workers demanded relief and minimum wage. They couched their demands in broad moral and political terms that began to define and develop a new nationalistic and democratic political culture.
Didn't
Um,
you go and buy a book then?
no, no, yeah. I tell you, I stumbled across this Belize, the genesis of modern politics, 1931 to 1954. And so I'm just getting into it, and it has a lot of the achievements that from the 30s when these people, but people started organizing some of the things that they were able to gain. No? So let me complete my contribution on this segment right here. Of course, Soberanis was jailed in 35, but still the labor agitations achieved a great deal. Of most immediate importance was the creation of relief work by a governor who saw it as a way to avoid civil disturbances. Workers built more than 300 kilometers of roads. So what this is telling me, Yaya, that as we look at what's happening currently in Belize, where we have these high rates of unemployment, that if our youths would only organize themselves, the politicians would in fact find work and find things for them to do, because this is exactly what happened in the 1930s. But unfortunately, like I said, it's different eras, a different type of mindset, uh, but the struggle remains the same.
You see, that's why these conversations are so important, because it's not like I would say, we would tell our children go and study, but we never taught them how to study, most of us.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing when it comes to organizing. The system was set up, and it's in the research as you studied why we have the type of education system we have, so that you don't think critically, so you don't question the system, so you don't organize. It's created that way. So once we start to dismantle those systems of oppression and we start to have conversations and understand how we ended up here, which is why we have to look back to come forward, Sankofa. We hope to be able to liberate ourselves, but we're past our chit chat. It's 7:33. We're 3 minutes behind. This is the people's space. So we're opening up the floor at this time for those who would like to comment, share your thoughts so far on what we shared. Go right ahead. I did find the thing about the dog sit down, so I'm waiting for somebody to say what you like to say.
Hi, YaYa.
Hey, Win. Good night.
Hi.
Go right ahead.
Yeah, I just want to tell people that the labor movement, and I've always been proud of Sabaranis and Philip Gosson. I just use their name, I won't put the handles to them. But it shows that if we would organize and stop look for leadership position.
When we can't see your face.
Wait, you want to see my face?
Yes, we want to see your face. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's when we start to just look for position, then we throw away the effort that we are working towards. I listened to the PSU and the teachers union, and we fall into this hopeless struggle of non-compliance, if I could use that word. And my brother just walked away because he said his character was being tarnished, and he is not standing for what they were portraying. And I'm saying, well, that's what leadership does. Leadership, people will question you after a certain time or a certain thing that you have done. But to be the true leader, you need to stand. Samaranos was criticized. He was jailed. He was punished. He was victimized. But did he give up? No. Why not? Because he had a purpose. He had a greater good of what he was fighting for. And the same thing, and Brother Flowers just know, if the youth would organize themselves for a better, they will gain. But the question like you raised, do they want better? And even though we were not trained to organize, we see what organization has done. We saw how the roach, how the rats, how the ants, how the bees, all the animals organize themselves and they get things. Why can't we as humans who are far above, I use the word, animal species, we are more educated, we are more advanced, but because that advancement that also keeps us back because we start to question each other's motives, we start to bring each other's purpose into question. Oh, what is Lambert trying to achieve? He wants fame, he wants victory, he wants TV coverage. But that's not what I'm about. I'm about getting what the mass deserve. And until we understand that game, because the rulers of us understand that game also, that's why they're always in carcass. They're always organizing because they have to show that though they are in cohesion with what they want to achieve. So if the House representative with the ruling party could always seems to be together, then we who are asking for improvement in wages, improvement in benefits, improvement in OSH bills, improvement with UCA bills, all of these things will only come when we as a people galvanize together and makes it work. We can't ask only the union members to do that because it's not only the union members who will benefit, it's the whole country, the whole nation will benefit from such greater good that will come. Certain cents a day to food, that's an improvement for free labor. You were working for free and you're getting 10 cents plus. So every time the union galvanizes to gain things, the whole nation profits. But when the union is beat back, we don't get anything, we lose more. And so I always encourage people, you don't have to really join a union, but look at what they are trying to achieve. Join onto that purpose. Betterment. It's not about bringing down the leader. It's about you as a people, we deserve more. And we believe the leader can give us more because we are living on the same sphere, on the same ball. We live on the same ball. And we see where the resources are. We believe that we deserve more of that ball to the hardworking employees, employers, workers, youth, children, age, whatever. So until we understand that concept, but until we unite for a purpose, then we always lose when we start to surrogate because of leadership roles. Thank you, YaYa.
Respect, brother. You know, sometimes we not give ourselves enough credit, you know, because we organize in a ways when we organize as organized. For example, if you left your house the morning, you don't have to have some level of organization for everybody could left and do what they could do. So we look at what they're still organizing skills because we don't know his story. We don't know that the why would go back from the history of unionism so we could learn what did our elders do, what did our ancestors do that we could learn from. And know that all we have organizing skills right now because we organize, we get up and get out of the house and do whatever we do every day. Those are organizing skills. We're part of a sports team. We're heads of department. We the drive school bus. With a school warden. Those are vital organizing skills.
Okay.
Powerful contribution there, Brother Wayne. I mean, uh, you had me thinking about that verse in the Bible where God said He gave man dominion over all things.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, it's really embarrassing for me to sit here and reflect on what you said, that the animals organize every single species.
That's right.
I mean the ants, the wee right now, the rainy season, they start.
Hey,
I mean, then they go on bad. And I'm really embarrassed as a human that damn, when you reflect on us having dominion and we're not close to the kind of organization than the beasts of the earth, man, it really really makes you do some reflection and thinking.
It is because you look at when the people organize to build the Tower of Babel. They organize, they say they reach heaven, and I hope that they're going. When they organize, they say when we are across Egypt into the promised land, they organize and they walk across the Red Sea. So whenever we organize for a purpose, but like I said, the problem we have is when we start attack leaders. Everybody wants to be a leader, and that's where the discouragement, the despondency, and the breakage fall apart. So whenever Moses was challenged when they were coming from Egypt, you see what happened? The people got confused, the people got discouraged. Whenever everybody got and I say, okay, Moses is the boy, we're going to follow Moses. The thing worked out. And so whenever we start to trample on leaders, It's the leaders are not put there because they have any special skills, you know. Sometimes leaders are weak, but they just have a certain tenacity that makes them able to lead on. And so if everybody could galvanize on that program and say, listen to me, we are not here for Lambe's promotion. We are here for our promotion. You see what I'm saying? And that's why probably the union is from the bottom up. We don't lead from the top down, we lead from the bottom up. We go to the members, what do you want? And when the members say this is what we want, then that's what the head does. So it's not like a political game where the politicians decide what the masses will get. Even though we say the people rule, political essay, it doesn't work that way. You work better within the union. Because when you go to negotiating table and you decide on a motion, you need to go back to the membership. This is what was decided. Do you agree, yes or no? And the membership says no, then we go back to the table and say the membership says no. And so that is where the organization for the union to me has its power, because it's people. But because, like I said, we are too educated for ourselves. We start to be disjointed because I don't like the idea anymore. I don't like he, I don't like she. And then we forget the reason why we were fighting for in the first beginning.
Sometimes too, we do have to hold leadership accountable. And the truth is that sometimes when we don't hold leadership accountable from the first jump, people get drunk with power. And we have to, in looking at the research, the real is that people come with agenda. People take over a union. That are real. And so we can't shy away from having then tough conversations. It's not a personal attack on anyone. I don't know how many unions really know what their constitution says, how things should happen. Most people don't, and people take advantage of people's ignorance. And that's just the real. Brother Dean.
Yeah, one of the difficult questions that I ask myself and I ask people that I talk to, YaYa, because coming into the public service and joining the public service union, what you said is a resonating theme. Why? Well, people, they use the union. But YaYa, let me ask this question. Is it that when people, and I think I'd like to hear from the others within the group. I see Sister Pitts is with us, and I really like Wayne's contribution tonight. But when someone is within that executive and in a position of leadership, is that person supposed to surrender? At least this is the perception I'm getting from some of the comments that I receive when they speak about the PSU and past leaders. Is that person supposed to surrender their goals, their ambition, to be more like, okay, I am currently the president, right, YaYa? What if I had a dream to become a certified public accountant, since that's my training? And through my contacts and networking, I'm able to secure an opportunity to become that. And bam, Dean Flowers get one opportunity to be a CPA. But it has always been my desire to be a CPA for argument's sake. Why is it that the first thing you hear, the man said, oh, say he get a great figure and do his CPA. And so it kind of like I have to ask myself that, is it that people who take up leadership position in these unions are supposed to just not grow professionally and just remain right where they are? And how do you distinguish between somebody who genuinely is in leadership but gets an opportunity to uplift themselves? Because some of the narrative, they're like, you're a leader, you're supposed to not achieve nothing. Just stay right there.
Yeah, I'm giving the mic to others to chime in.
Yeah, and for those who might be joining us for the first time this week, this segment 7:30 to 8 is open mic forum. It's just anybody can speak, anybody can contribute, anybody can respond.
Mr. Flowers, congratulations on your accepting the leadership role at the PSU. But that shouldn't stop you from growing. I think what happens is when the employer promotes you, okay, and then you lose the purpose why you were elected as president. You can still go to study, do your school. The kind of more the better improve and is educated. The better improve you becomes, the better leader you will be. And I've always admired people who get educated or who enhance their educational level, but still remain humble, because that's what it's supposed to be. Education should make you humble, not proud. And when people becomes proud, then I kind of walk away from it, because education is just a matter of time for me then. Right? Most people can, if you have money and time, you can be educated. If you don't have that, then it's just reading books, self-educate yourself. Educare, my one instructor once told me, it's already there in you, because like certain leaders are trained and born, but some others are just that. Somebody just need to help pushes and light you, would say, lit the fire on you and rise you up. So, but what makes it, like in my case at the port, I might be the union leader, and the boss decided, okay, Lambert is being a firebrand, so to get rid of him and promote him to management level. Do I accept that before my 3 years term is out? Or should I have a meeting with the executive and say, bye, listen to me, I know I take that. No, I think it's wise to have an executive meeting with your leaders and say, listen to me, I need to grow. This is a promotion for a lifetime. I'm not get it again. This is a one-time opportunity. But I'm not to sell out. Whatever I know about the union or already had in the union, I'll pass on to the next leader. So the second run-off, as you call it, I will be willing to give him all my knowledge that I have, all my ideas I have, and I'll just go to the next level. Yes, it might be a stab in the back, of you would say, but I've done my fight. And my fight not stop. Even though I'm with management, is when they invite me to meetings, because that's what they will do with you. They'll promote you, then take you to boycott your own union, isn't that you were fighting for a year ago or 6 months ago. But you need to be educated in a sense like Soberanes, and realize that your objective is not one time. Your objective is for a future development of not only your people, but your whole country. So when we are fighting against a 10% salary cut, 10% to others might sound like 10 cents from a dollar. But for me, who is just above the minimum wage, bedroom, 10% half a dollar is a lot of money to me. So I'm saying, so when people looking at me and say, well, but only 10%, yeah, it's only 10%, but look at what I'll be losing over this period of time. So if it's that marginal, why don't you give me my 10% and more then? You know what I'm saying? So why doesn't the superior say, well, only 10%? Don't even cut the only 10%, so get to that. But what? You know, this the person in the leadership does not want to lose, right? They want you to lose, but they don't want to take any losses. So they have this lofty idea to better this country to suppress you. So my encouragement to anybody who is leading, take your leadership truthfully, and you move up with discussion with those who you lead. Don't arbitrarily walk away from a leadership role because you cannot have a conversation with those who you are leading. And that's what makes you strong. If you can talk with those who you are leading and they can help you be a better person, then your leadership will always be a good one, a strong one, and one that people always respect you for.
Respect, brother. Anybody else would like to chime in?
So we got
Good night.
two
Good
mics
night.
on mute.
Good night, sister. Cynthia Pitts, Muscle, talk to it.
Well, I know that once you get into the union, it is something that gets in your blood, really. Once a unionist, always a unionist. So if you are given the opportunity to study, to improve yourself, and I think you should take it. You should take that opportunity. And if you're a true unionist, you will find a way of helping out your union. Even if you are promoted, it is not study, but your employer promotes you to a management position. You should still and will still find a way. And when you are in meetings where decisions are being made, which you know are not in the interest of workers, then I think that you use your union skills and your union passion not to try to get the management to do the things that will be in the interest of the worker, And I think that at the end of the day, it is being true to yourself. You know yourself. And if you know that you are a unionist, you mean good for the worker, you would want to improve things for workers, and that is you, then you shouldn't worry about what people think. You know, people will always say things that, you know, that are not true or factual. They don't know better, but they say it is you. You know why you are doing what you are doing, and you are true to yourself. That's my feelings about it.
Thanks, Muslim. We're asking when you speak. We're asking if you could put your mic on so we could see your face, please. Thanks.
Yeah, we have quite a number of sisters from CWU. Sister, pick one name, make a pick one name, make a pick my good sister Ella. Talk to you, Ella. How is it going?
Ella might not be there. Oh.
I'm right here. I was trying to find him the unmute. When I brought Adine, I just know you master my name.
Hey, you have to put your camera on. You have to put your camera.
Not a good hair day, brother Dean. It's a rough day. So excuse me this time, but I'm enjoying the conversation. I've been trying to log in every Thursday. I always am open to learning more about the thing that I love, which is unionism. And what Brother Dean mentioned just now about your personal goals and achievements being maybe judged unfairly by your union members is right on target. I always have to remind myself that first and foremost, I am an employee of the Social Security Board, and I have to provide a salary. I have to make a salary in order to provide for my family. And obviously, I do, just as in union movement, I don't want to be stagnant. I want to improve my life. I want to improve myself. So that's why I went to school. I got a degree, and I want to have a promotion one day at Social Security Board. But that does not mean that I would get that unethically. That does not mean that I would use the position I have in the union to gain that promotion. It will be on my merit at work. But people will look at it just like Baradine said that, oh, because she was union chief, she sold out, and look, she doesn't want to go, she doesn't want to be a leader anymore in the union. She wants to be a manager or whatever. You know, it's unfair. I mean, we have to think about our families first, and we also think about our, that is why we're here, that is why we're in this meeting, because we believe in the movement of the union. We believe that only through the union, a union movement, we can make all the lives of our members better. We can ensure that their rights are protected as laborers. We can ensure the benefits that's in their collective bargaining agreement remain there, that it's not taken out. You know, so I agree, Brother Dean. We have don't. It's unfair that they would judge us that way, but like the sister just mentioned, that's the way it is. We just have to ignore those things and continue the good work we're doing. Contribution tonight. Thanks.
Respect. Thanks. I just want to say to Brother Lambe that Brother Sabaranis did get discouraged and went to live in Panama and stayed there for 6 years. On page 184 of Colonialism and Resistance in Belize, it says, later that year, Sabaranis petitioned the Commission of Kaya District to do something about the awful living and working conditions of Maya laborers at Baking Pot. But in 1942, discouraged by trying to organize people under wartime conditions when they could not give vent to their feelings, he went to Panama where he stayed for 6 years. So, forget where they can break sometime. The time right now is 7:54. Make I just quickly read this thing about dogs sit down where I find for now. It says the same was true in 1930s when the government began to take some responsibility for relief for the unemployed and hungry and for reconstruction of hurricane damage. There was considerable dissatisfaction with the way the government responded to the crisis after the hurricane. Faced with the huge task of feeding and housing thousands of people while starting to clear up the mess, avoid epidemics, and begin reconstruction, government opened soup kitchens, established a temporary camp at the airport, and kept open public buildings to shelter the homeless each night. People made their own shacks from the wreckage called dog sit-downs, while government constructed a series of barracks of single rooms for which a weekly rent of 75 cents was charged. It probably seemed insensitive, if not exorbitant, to charge about a day's pay to the needy in such a situation. So we know in the early 1930s, a day's pay was approximately 75 cents. And then the governor built their one room barracks and they charged 75 cents for the weekly rent right after a hurricane. Now, this is the part where the colonizers take. 3 months after the hurricane, the acting governor was still trying to raise a reconstruction loan in England. The British government would guarantee such a loan only if reserve powers were restored to the governor. So he had a condition of the loan. Give me back some of the power me don't give you no already. And he had to agree to it because what's the me do? In a bad situation and we need the money.
Yeah. Let me see. Sister Jasmine, I see you have your hands up. Your hand up. Go ahead, Sister Jasmine.
Brother Dean, I just want talk a little bit on the matter that you said that we have to be prepared when we go on strike. I think that that was one of our biggest, if I could say, fall in this round of our strike, because we the union were not prepared. We just joined and our ideas, or we did not sit down to really put ideas together. And I think next time or before that, we need to prepare like everything, like when a hurricane is coming, you sit down and you prepare a disaster plan. So we need, that is what we need to know and have our members fully on board, and we need to learn how to engage them and have them with us, because some may not be afraid, but others will be afraid. And we need to teach them strategies that they can use to cover their back if they are afraid.
Yes.
And congratulations on being our new president.
All right, thank you, Sister Jasmine, all the way, joining us all the way from Corozal. All right.
Time check is 7:57.
Brother Miguel, I think that's Brother Miguel from the BWU, Belize Workers Union. Any contribution tonight, Brother Miguel?
Good night, Brother Dean. Thanks. I'm joining and trying to learn with you all a little more of the union movement. No?
Yes, my brother.
Thanks for the invitation, Brother Dean.
Yeah, anytime. It's an open forum, my brother. It's a weekly reasoning session spearheaded by the good Sister YaYa. Pretty much just want to do her part, and I decided to partner with her to engage in the education process about how do we organize as a people, and it doesn't always have to be behind labor, but how do we organize in any and everything that we do.
This is our third session of Belizean Workers Rights Reasonings on Thursday nights. It's on Zoom and on YouTube, so people could go back and watch it at their convenience. Final thoughts, brother. Oh, we have Sister Ella with her hands raised. Go ahead, Sister Ella.
I just wanted to ask for Adine to pass on my contact information to you, so we can post the link on our CWU Union Facebook page and our Social Security Board Union Facebook page. That way we can have more members learning and interacting whenever you have your next session.
Okay, yes, sis. If you note also in the chat section, we're also on YouTube. That's the YouTube link. That's the YouTube link. And then you can find the Facebook link on the PSU Vanguard Facebook page. So they're able to join us via YouTube live in the meeting room here or on YouTube.
process of posting the meeting ID and the passcode in the chat. We will have the same meeting ID and passcode for the next at least 12 more meetings, right, Trisha?
Yeah. Yes, that's what Sister Trish said. I think 12 more meetings, we will be using the same meeting ID and password. I noticed you placed the meeting ID in there, YaYa. Okay, that's the passcode. Excellent. Yeah, so that's the same ID and passcode. But Pablo, Kawich, I note you're joining us every week, and I want to say welcome and thank you for always being present. But we want to hear from you, so I have to call you next week. Make perhaps you could make a contribution on how the Young Union, well, not the Young Union, but how the organizing is going over at DFC, and how that can be strengthened, because that's what we're here to do, and also how we could build up each other.
Thanks. It's now 8:01. The hour could go by so quick. We're open to suggestions, ideas. I'm definitely looking for new faces, new voices, new input when I look for guests. I don't know for I'm good one. I want new perspective. But at the half hour at 7:30, anybody who want to participate could participate. But when it comes to guests, I'm definitely looking for a different perspective. And it doesn't have to be only from Belize. We'll have regional guests as well. Final thoughts, Brother Dean, before we sign out. Give thanks to everyone who joined us tonight. It's 8:01.
Okay. Well, my final thoughts, YaYa, is as usual. Thanks to everybody who came out tonight, joined us. Thanks to those who contributed. And we continue to spread the word. We continue to spread the message. I would have hoped you would have perhaps give us a hint who might be that special guest next week, but I guess we'll have to wait and organize, and unless you already have somebody in mind.
I have someone in mind. The person has given me a soft yes, so I have to wait for that firm yes before I say the person's name.
All right, excellent.
Well, but you have to check out Crumb Sunday Review Facebook page. That's where I'll be posting. As soon as I know, you'll know.
And my final words, for those of you who didn't get an opportunity to listen to YaYa's show, Sunday Review, last week, Sunday, I encourage you to go on Facebook and look at that show. Very informative, very educational. Well-learned brother from Jamaica. YaYa, you could probably mention the name, but thanks again for extending that invitation to that brother. And I encourage everybody to go look on the show.
Yes, you may go to Crumb Television Facebook page from last Sunday. The brother is the president of Jamaica Industrial Trade Union, Brother Kavan Gale. He's also a senator. They have a membership of about, I think, 9,000 people. Powerful. Next Sunday, not this Sunday coming, the next Sunday coming on the 13th of June, we have another dynamic brother out of Antigua, who's also a senator and a union leader. And he'll be sharing with us about organizing. So last month, we focused on unionism for Crimson Review. This month, we're focusing on organizing. So thanks, Brother Dean, for the support. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Please share and tell other people to join us. And we're here to work together. Thanks so much. Thanks, Trish, for making it happen every week. It's 3 minutes after 8. I'm going to get home safe for another home. One love.
And good night, everybody.